Kraft with the news now from Fox, and we're joined by Brett Bruen, career diplomat who is writing about all things election today. And he has a piece out in Business Insider that says November 4th, the morning after, is really what people should be looking at and worried about. Brett, can you just kind of talk about that piece that you wrote?
Absolutely. I think there is this tendency to look back at 2016 and say, that's the model that the Russians, the Iranians, the Chinese are going to use this time. But if I'm sitting in Moscow, Tehran, or Beijing, I see the greatest opportunity in the hours and the days after the election, because the country is so divided, and there are already going to be a lot of questions as to how the process worked, and efforts on both sides to try and sow some doubt, especially on the side that comes out behind. And so if I am a propagandist, that's a prime opportunity for me, because I don't have to create the chaos. I don't have to sow the seeds of doubt. They're already there. And so their efforts will very much focus on trying to amplify and to exacerbate that situation. So that's when Americans need to be most attentive to the risk.
And I just kind of wanted to get your opinion. Last week, there was this abruptly announced press conference by John Ratcliffe and Christopher Wray, the DNI and the FBI. How unprecedented was that in your view? And were you surprised by that, this kind of warning to Americans to just be cautious, be steady, let the system work it out?
I have to say it was a surprising press conference for a number of reasons. One is, yes, the intelligence community, the FBI should come out and warn Americans, what are we seeing? But not in this episodic way of let me come out, give them a big press conference, and then go back behind the scenes. We need to get that information every day. We need to get that information in a reliable way, and then also get told, what should we do about it? Because one of the points that I make in the Business Insider column is that there is actually something that every American can do to defend our democracy from disinformation. And that is talk about what's working in the process. If you voted by mail, if you voted early, if you voted on election day, there is a lot that you can share about your experience. And by putting that out there, whether it's to friends and family or on social media, you're helping to diffuse the efforts of foreign meddlers who would want to create doubt, who would want to take an individual incident or even just fabricate an incident and try to make that into a systematic problem. So that's why it's so important. We're not accustomed to doing it in America, but this year, really essential that we talk about what's actually working.
And for your average voter, like for example, after this today, I'm going to early vote here in Arizona. But for your average voter, a lot of these foreign threats and actors that, we heard about in 2016, that we're hearing about in 2020, they're kind of just up there in the ether. We don't really understand like how they can affect, misinformation, disinformation, vote tallies, vote totals. How real is the threat for someone like me who's going to go into the ballot box, into the ballot booth, in just a couple of hours? Should we be thinking about that when we go cast our vote? How real is it for Americans?
Well, I think the first threat is that we're seeing a lot of disinformation circulate online about the process. So whether it's where you vote, how you vote, for whom you should vote, there are efforts by foreign actors to manipulate that. We've seen it from China, from Russia, and from Iran. And for various means. I think generally what's important to understand is that they don't actually care that much, not even Moscow, about who wins the election. Their objective is to diminish, to damage the credibility of American institutions. And if they sow that confusion, then they will have won. So by inserting all of this false information into the minds of even a small number of voters, they can undermine the process. And it's also why I say, ultimately, this idea of foreign actors going in to change votes or to change voter registration is not going to happen on a wide-scale basis because they don't need to. All they need to do is to go into one machine in one small town and show they can do it, and then you amplify that message, and it creates the impression that there is a vulnerability in the system.
And just to highlight the kind of thesis of your piece, when voters wake up on November 4th, don't really know yet if there'll be a winner declared or if all the votes will be tallied and results will be coming in probably through that morning. But you're seeing now that cities like DC, cities like Philadelphia, they are preparing for some type of violent reaction. Either which way the results go. They're boarding up businesses. They're taking precautions. They're putting up barricades on the streets in the nation's capital. So, in a sense, is that disinformation campaign working to some degree by these foreign actors if we're taking these precautions?
Yeah, I have to say, you mentioned at the outset that I'm a recovering diplomat, and I spent a lot of time in countries that were in the early stages of democracy, where we focused after elections on trying to convince politicians to calm some of the tensions. And that, I think, is what has to happen this year. You've got to see leaders on both sides of the aisle who are telling their supporters, look, this is about the process, it's about our country. And this loss for whomever will also pass. And the notion that you have to engage in violence, the notion that you have to go out and violently express your dissatisfaction or claim that the process was fraudulent, actually just serves to damage us all. And so, what I hope to hear from politicians is that this is a message of reassurance in the confidence in our system. It's a message that even if we lost this time, there will be another time. As they say in baseball, there's always next season.
But just kind of keeping on that for just a minute, does it behoove politicians and is it incumbent on them to also tone down the rhetoric? I mean, we're seeing kind of these unprecedented levels of sowing mistrust, sowing doubt from our elected leaders too. I mean, kind of doing the work for these foreign actors for them, essentially.
Oh, they are. And look, this is why Russia, to a great extent, has backed off the use of trolls and bots, because all they have to do is take the loudest, the most extreme voice on either side of the political spectrum. They are actively using both liberal voices and conservative voices, and they try then to give more oxygen to that voice to make it seem more influential. And so we need to have politicians in both parties out there saying, this is not a loss for our country. This is about our Constitution. It's about respect for the process and reminding all of us that we have something more at stake.
All right, we want to break in here. We want to go to our sister station, Fox 13 in Tampa, with their coverage. They just have some breaking news where they are announcing that President Trump has won Florida. So let's get that news to you right here on News Now from Fox. This is from Fox 13 in Tampa.
As it stands right now, those numbers are going to keep changing, and of course tonight you can follow along on your screen here this evening.
Yeah, we're going to keep them at the bottom of your screen right there on the left-hand side.
Let's get straight to Fox 13's political editor Craig Patrick on this as well.
And Craig, you have been